Alright, so a couple of months ago I made this video called Automating Instagram Posts with Node.js Express and Contentful. I'm also subscribed to Contentful's monthly newsletter, and in it they wrote that they're interested in seeing what I'm building. So I decided to email my project over to Stefan at Contentful, and after thorough scrutiny, analysis, and review, he asked me if I'd be up for some Contentful swag. I'm like, of course, I'm always down for free swag. So here's 5 seconds of free swag for you. That's enough fooling around. The first automated Instagram posting tutorial that I made was over 40 minutes long, and I already know what some of you are thinking.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
I decided I'm going to make a way shorter tutorial and just use one static image to post every single day. If you'd like a more in-depth explanation that includes image manipulation, error handling, using different images, things like that, definitely give my first tutorial a go. Otherwise, this tutorial will cover a more basic approach. We're going for something like the same photo of an egg every day on Instagram, who unfortunately bailed in January 2020 after 415 posts, or what the same photo of Tobey Maguire was trying to do but failed almost instantaneously. I was initially inspired to do this project because of an old Instagram account which doesn't exist anymore called Daily Baby Mike. An imitation account by the name of Daily Baby Mikey posted a single photo of Mike Wazowski in 2018 and never posted again. For this tutorial, I enlisted the help of my buddy Alex for the artwork. You know what? I'll let him introduce it.
Hi, I'm Alex Geloza, and this is Pixel Mike.
Thanks, Alex. So I'm going to start completely from scratch here and set up a new Gmail account and a new Instagram account for Daily Pixel Mike. Next, I'm going to sign up for a new Heroku account for free. The role will be hobbyist, and the language will be Node.js. Set a password. It'll ask if you want to sign your life away. Click accept. Now, let's create a new app. My app name will be Daily Pixel Mike, and click create app. Now, just make sure you have the latest version of Node.js installed on your operating system, and we're all set up here. So within your favorite code editor, I'm using VS Code, open up your terminal and make a new directory. I'm going to call this one Daily Poster. You're going to want to cd into that directory, and if you don't have it installed, you can open up your command palette now and type in code and install the code command. This will allow you to type in code dot in your terminal within your working directory to make it your workspace in your code editor. Now, in a new terminal, type npm init-y to create a new package.json file initialized with all default settings. From here, we'll create a new empty index.js file. Within the package.json file, you're going to want to add a start script so that Node knows how to run your app when you run npm start. This will run node index since the code that we will want to execute is in index.js. In your terminal, run npm I or install express. We'll get a new node modules directory and packagelock.json file, and let's begin building a basic express server. Let's start by assigning the constant variable express to require express. Next, assign the constant variable app to the invocation of the express variable function. After that, the variable port will either be assigned to the port defined in the environment variables or 4000. Now in your terminal, run npm install.env to install the .env package so that we'll be able to configure environment variables. At the top of our index.js file, type require.env and invoke the config method. Next, we'll create an empty .env file. We'll come back to this in a second, but first let's write app.listen, the first argument of which will be our previously defined port, and the second argument will be a callback function that will console log listening on port and then whatever port we're currently on. There you go, basic express server. In your terminal, run npm install Instagram Web API and then import it by assigning the Instagram variable to require Instagram Web API. Let's create a new Instagram client. Assign the client variable to an Instagram object with the new keyword. The first argument is an object. This object will have a username key that will correspond to a value of process.env.Instagram username and a password key that will correspond to a value of process.env.Instagram password. We're going to define those environment variables back in our .env file that we created earlier. Make sure that the variables are all uppercase and you have no spaces here. So now we're going to take advantage of our Instagram cookies and persist our logged in state with something called a cookie store so that every time after we're logged in initially using our username and password, Instagram remembers our session. So let's set the variable cookie store to a new file cookie store object. We don't have this imported yet, so let's import it at the top of our file. Set the variable file cookie store to require tough cookie file store 2, and in the terminal run npm install tough cookie file store 2. This is the module that we will use to persist our cookies. This file cookie store will take an argument that'll be a string with a name that we will give to the local file that will be created after those cookies are initially set. Let's name that cookies.json, and this will persist our logged in session. The new Instagram object can also take a second argument object that can also include a language, such as English US, a proxy, or request option. Now let's create a login function. This will be an asynchronous function that'll console log logging in as soon as it's invoked. Now let's say await client and then invoke the login method. If it successfully resolves, then let's console log login successful, otherwise let's catch whatever errors we get back, and console log login failed, along with any errors we may possibly get. Finally, let's call that login function that we just created. Above that, let's create an Instagram post function. Within it, let's write await client, and since we're using await syntax here, we have to make this function asynchronous. Let's invoke the upload photo method, the argument of which will be an object. We'll add a key of photo. This will have a corresponding string value of a local file name, a caption key with a value of whatever you want your Instagram caption to be, and a post key with a value of either story or Instagram feed. Now I'm going to transfer over my JPEG file of Pixel Mike into my VS Code folder and update the photo value with its name, wazowski.jpg. After this photo uploads, let's take the response object and set the variable media to response.media. Let's console log the Instagram post URL with instagram.com/p/media.code. Let's say await client. Again, now that we're using await, this callback function should be asynchronous, and invoke the add comment method. This method will take an argument object. Set the media ID key to our media object.id and the text key to whatever you want your comment to say. Now let's go ahead and invoke this Instagram post function after we successfully log into Instagram. I'm going to quickly change this comment text to some appropriate Pixel Mike related hashtags for my own use. Next, let's run npm install node cron in the terminal to schedule our posts. At the top of index.js, set the variable cron to require node cron. Write cron and invoke the schedule method on it. The first argument will be a cron schedule expression. The second will be a callback function. Since I want this script to run every day at noon, I'm going to set this first argument to 0012 ****. If you're not familiar with cron schedule expressions, check out the cron tab guru tool in the description. Cut out the Instagram related blocks of code that we wrote earlier and paste them into the second, now asynchronous callback function argument of cron.schedule. At this point, the daily poster is basically ready to go for static captions, but I'm going to make Pixel Mike a little bit more interesting by grabbing a new random adjective every single day with the wordpos module. I'm going to run npm install wordpos in the terminal and import it into index.js by setting the camel case wordpos variable to require wordpos. Then I'll set the lowercase wordpos variable to a new wordpos object. Within my Instagram post function, I'll run wordpos.randAdjective. The first argument will be an object with the key of count. In this case, I'll set a value of just 1 for simplicity's sake. The second argument will be a callback function, which in this case will handle some asynchronous logic. I'll set a result word variable to the first string in the result array and replace any underscores with spaces. I'll clean up the result further by adding the word feeling in front of it if it's an adjective. If it's an adverb, leave it off. Finally, I'll create a new caption variable with a fun dynamic description for Pixel Mike's feelings or behavior every single day with some additional hashtags. Next, I'll replace the caption value with this new caption variable. Before you push your code up, don't forget to add a .gitignore file. You can add the node modules directory and your .env file there. Also, if you're deploying on Heroku, you can add a proc file and write web node index.js there so that Heroku knows where to look to run your app. Finally, git add, git commit, and git push your code up to your version control provider such as GitHub. The nice thing about GitHub is that you can easily connect your repos to Heroku and easily rebuild with each push. Also, don't forget to set your environment variables in Heroku, including TZ, so the server knows what the local time is and your cron job works correctly. You'll see that we're not serving anything on the root path, which is fine because we're not, but at least our dyno and thus our server are awake. However, Heroku dynos go to sleep after 30 minutes, so you can use something like Caffeine or Uptime Robot to continuously ping your dyno to keep it from sleeping. You can verify your Heroku account with a credit card and receive 1,000 free monthly dyno hours, and they still won't charge you a dime. Let's check out a quick demo of what exactly is going on when this cron job runs. You can see that my Heroku dyno is awake and is getting pinged every 5 minutes by Uptime Robot. You can see that it's almost exactly 12 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time, so I'll check my Heroku logs to see what exactly is being logged when my script runs. At 12 o'clock exactly, we see that my script is logging in. A few seconds later, we see that the login was successful, and a few seconds after that, we get our Instagram post's URL. We also see our new Pixel Mike post complete with a custom caption with an interesting random feeling that already contains a comment with a list of hashtags. And that'll about wrap this tutorial up. The source code for this video can be found in the Daily Pixel Mike GitHub repo in the description below, which includes how I also implemented daily definitions for each random adjective or adverb and a bit of TypeScript as well. Thank you so much for watching. I had a lot of fun making this video. If you're on Instagram, feel free to follow @DailyPixelMike for daily posts, and if you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe to the channel as well.